Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to the Ultimate Fat Loss Workout, otherwise known as the Empty Room Workout. You see, in my post, I wanted you guys to have a really good launching point to get yourself in shape. And you might not have a gym membership, you might not have equipment at home, you might not have anything. So what are you gonna do? There's still things you can do, and that's what I wanna show you. And they're all simple things, but they're things most people don't do 100% correctly, and because of that, you're not being efficient and you're not gonna get the results you want. So we're gonna go through a series of things, 5 exercises that you can do, and I want you to really focus on your form. Each exercise has a regression, which means something else you could do in place of the main exercise if you can't do it because of an injury or because you're not strong enough to perform the exercise 100% correctly. Hey guys, okay, so the first one's the push-up. Now, I know what you're thinking, oh, the push-up, like everyone talks about that to death, but are you doing it? And then my second question is, are you doing it right? Because if you're not, again, you're not gonna see the results. I've seen probably 30 people in my tenure as a strength and conditioning coach never do a push-up correctly because they refuse to regress from the main push-up to something they actually can do. Because if you're only going down, let me show you an example. If you're only going down like this, you're not working the whole muscle, you're not working the chain properly, you're not going to strengthen it, okay? So the push-up I like to set up with the arms. You're going to plant your arms down so you have a pillar, right? Your shoulder, elbow, and wrist should be in a line, creating a pillar, right? If you're too far out, nothing supporting it here. Too far over, you're going to have wrist pain. So make sure you have a straight pillar, 2 of them. Then you're going to step back with a strong leg, right? Squeezing the quad muscles and squeezing the butt muscles on both sides. Now that I'm super tight, full body exercise, I can come down, and on the way up, I can squeeze my core as I go up. See, if you don't squeeze the core, you're going to sag. And if you sag, you're missing out on all this muscle you could be working, right? So one more time. Pillar, pillar, step back, squeezing the butt, down, drive up. Now, what happens if you can't do that, right? We used to go to the knees, and that's still fine. I mean, the knees is okay, but you're missing out on a lot of core. So what I've been doing is putting people elevated. So at home, you can use a countertop, or a table, or a couch, or a chair, right? So this is our chair. We're gonna come in. Our pillar is gonna be a little bit different because of the elevation, but I'm still gonna try to align my wrist, elbow, and shoulder up. And I can step back, squeeze my core, squeeze my butt, come down, drive up, right? Now, what happens if you're sitting there thinking, man, I can do a lot of push-ups? Well, if you can do 50 push-ups in a row, then hey, you know what you can do? Put your feet elevated. That's gonna make the push-up even harder. So watch. Get my pillars, step onto my chair, and then drive down. Nice and tight. Now, because of the elevation that way, it's a lot more shoulder intense. It's more like a handstand kind of push-up. And you're going to get a lot stronger that way. But remember, the right progression is key. All right, guys, next up is the knee grab sit-up. Now the knee grab sit-up is a pretty cool progression of the sit-up. It gives you a lot more activity. It's actually a good way to improve your push-up if you do it right. So a knee grab is you're gonna lay down, toes pointed up, hands tight. So your biceps are squeezed, your chest is squeezed, you're nice and tight. Now before I lift into my sit-up, I'm gonna pull my core down. So the way I can do that is inhale, and then when I exhale, I'm going to squeeze my core down as tight as possible. Then, I'm already tight here. I'm set to make my lift into my knee grab. Right? Knee grab sit-up. It is a total body workout because on the way down, so I'm coming up, on the way down, I'm squeezing my quads nice and tight. Now you can see how that translates into the push-up, because the push-up you have to have that core too, otherwise you sag, remember? But again, the knee grab is an advanced sit-up, So what you can do instead of the knee grab, if you can't get very many or do it right at all, if you're feeling any lower back pressure because you're compensating, you can do the military crunch. So the military crunch, you're just going to raise your feet, hands to the head, right? You're going to crunch up, shoulders back down. Crunch up, shoulders back down. If your shoulders aren't hitting down, you're not working the full chain again, right? You're only working a little bit of muscle at a time. You're not going to get as strong as somebody else who maybe might be going down all the way. So the knee grab, adding. All right, guys, we're back, and the squat is the next one, okay? So with the squat, it's a really complex movement. So basically, a number of things can hold you back. Now, what I see with most people, because we work with a lot of day-to-day people, we don't work with a ton of athletes here. That's a very specialized group. But our day-to-day people, I see tight calves, right? Tight hip flexors, and because look what happened. We sit down all day, right? And these things are shortened. So the squat becomes really hard for some people, and a lot of thoracic immobility, which means you can't move your back as flexibly as you should. So what I see with the squat is a lot of times this, if your calves are too tight, right? Or sometimes, when you squat down, you're really trying to hunch to get deeper, and that's where the back mobility comes into play, right? So with the squat, first I want you to understand there's a lot of ways to do it. What I want you to do is, again, create pillars. So this time, instead of our wrist, elbow, and shoulder, we're going hip, knee, ankle, right? So if you go too wide, chances are you're not ready for that, and you're going to cave in, right? If you go too short, chances are you're going to be unstable, and you're not going to get too much out of it either. So let's go I call it hip width. Hip, knee, ankle, that's my pillar. From here, the best way to try to keep yourself in form is to put your hands on your head. It's called the prisoner squat, right? So now that I'm here, all you have to get to is parallel to the ground. Everything else is gravy, so we can work on that later, but right now, let's just get down parallel to the ground. So my femur, my leg bone is now parallel to the ground. I'm here, my chest is up, right? So my core is tight, and then I can drive through my heels, not my toes, my heels, and pop up, right? If you're driving through your toes, chances are your knee is really far forward. Now, there's mixed research on that, but listen, it's the eye test. If your knee is like this, way over here, there's nothing supporting it, it's not going to be good for you, okay? Over time, you're going to develop an injury. I can almost guarantee it. So what you're going to want to do is, watch, get in your form, sit back in that chair, that imaginary chair, and that's ultimately going to put you in the right position. Then from there, all you have to worry about is your back. So, let's say you can't get down all the way. Fine. If you can't get down here, stay here, or here, wherever you can get to, and then work on the mobility of your ankles and your back until you can get low enough. All right? So in a nutshell, the squat, let's break it down. Let's go 3 points. Chest up, butt back, and then get as low as possible. Back up through the heels. Okay, next we're going to talk about the sit out. Now the sit out is a TFW specific exercise. You're not going to see this very many places, and it's derived from wrestling, from the wrestler's positioning. Now, what's cool about it is it's full body, right? All of these are really full body, but this one in particular, you got to stabilize on your leg and your arm while your core moves. And it takes a lot of flexibility, which means some of you might not be able to do it. So I'm going to go through a few different variations. Actually, they're not even sit-ups, they're just regressions, okay? But first I'll show you the sit-out. So I'm going to get my pillars again, right? Because anything on our hands, we need our pillars for. So I got my pillars. I'm going to show you at an angle too so you can see it better. But I got my pillars. I'm going to use bag push-up form, okay? So I'm going to keep my knees bent. Then I'm going to turn and sit out, right? When you first start, you can sit your butt down and actually get your angle, and then come back. And I'm going to sit out this way. Come back. So notice when I sit out, right, I have to have a strong arm here. I have to stabilize my leg here, flexibility through here, and I use my core to swivel myself through, right? So I use my oblique to swivel myself through. Now, like I said, that could be intense, and it is. It's cardio intense, it's stability, like really hard stability in your one arm, because you have to hold your whole body weight up. Your leg might be at a weird angle for your knee. So if you can't do the sit out, let's try the hip dip. Again, there's a lot of variations of the hip dip, but this one is a basic modification where I want you to just try to rotate your hips. If you can get that hip rotation and the movement in the back, you might be able to work your way into the sit out. And you're still using stability, right? So the hip dip, same form, right? But I want you just to dip your hip and pull it back in. Dip your hip, pull it back in. That way both hands stay on the ground for better support, and you can work on that rotation. All right? Okay, the mountain climber, guys. You see, the mountain climber is it's one of my pet peeves, because mostly you see this. I mean, guess what? There's little to no strengthening going on there. There's very little cardio because you're not even doing it right. So I don't want to be harsh on you, but like the mountain climber is one of my favorite things, and it's kind of hard if you put it in the right workout and do it right, okay? Now, with the mountain climber, what do we need? Our pillars, because we're on our hands, right? So just getting the pillar format is hard enough, right? Just stabilizing the right way is hard enough. But then you're going to add in, a knee drive up and in without losing that stable pillar. Now, for the mountain climber, if you have the wrist flexibility, it's better to lean forward more, all right? That's going to get more lat activation. So if I'm here, I'm going to try to lean forward a little bit, squeeze in here, and then drive, all right? Now, a progression to the mountain climber, because everyone should be able to do the mountain climber, at least a few of them, to get used to it. And if you can't, remember, go up to your chair or your couch and do it there. Elevation is always good if you have a back problem or something, but you should be able to do the actual knee drive. But a progression could be the wide mountain climber. So the wide mountain climber, I'll show you from the front, is actually you're going to come out at an angle towards your hands, right? So your foot's going to end up by your hand here, and you're here, and you're going to plant your leg down. So it requires some flexibility, and it's going to get more quad activation, so it'll start burning your quads more, which is cool, right? Now the last progression I want to talk about is part of the burpee, right? So when you burpee out, you're going to jump out, right? But that's what I want you to stay. I want you to stay jumping out, and then jumping in, jumping out, jumping in. And notice when I jump back, I'm not leaning back, right? I'm not leaning back like this. My arms stay put. So I jump out into plank, jump back in. That's called a knee tuck. That's one of my real favorites, because super quad intense, super cardio intense. I'm breathing heavy, just showing you guys this, and it's a really cool addition. So you try them all and figure out where you're at, and then either progress or regress.